Welcome to The Gorgeous Effect. I'm Julie Chanel, and with my co-founder, Cathy Olson, we're about to drop some serious tea on how to create funnels that not only look amazing, but actually convert into customers. It's time to show the world what you've got. Let's do this. Hey everyone, this is Julie and Cathy. Welcome back to another episode of The Gorgeous Effect. Today we're talking about something called transition tax. And what happens when you are stuck between two modes, two levels, two projects, and the old way isn't working, but the new way feels heavy or hard. And so you're stuck kind of in the middle, kind of sticking with the old way because you don't want to pay the transition tax.
Dun dun dun. I mean, it's almost like regular tax season, so I feel like this is a different kind of tax that you have to deal with right now.
Yeah, there are a lot of examples of this that I can think of in my life where, you've outgrown something. Or I'm going to use even like, for example, the course that we launched about 2 years ago, I think now, Scalable Coach Method. And so much has changed, so much. And I know that I want to like update what it's like to be a coach in the age of AI and asynchronous coaching, but it's a project. And the way that it is currently, it's very helpful, but like I don't really want to relaunch it in the form that it's in. And I don't want to pay the transition tax to move to the new level. So I'm just kind of stuck in purgatory. That's my example.
Yeah, it's totally different than burnout because it's not like you don't want to do it. Like you actually want to do it like really
Right.
badly. Like so
Yeah.
it's not like you loathe doing it. It's not like it doesn't excite you, but I think your brain is just kind of protecting you from the hard or like if you don't have it quite figured out yet, like there's something like things will get in the way or you will procrastinate it because it takes the extra thinking. So I think it's like your brain trying to sort of conserve the energy because it's totally different than normal burnout. It's totally different than like not facing something, like
Yeah. And I think it's different than resistance too,
right.
because it's not like I'm afraid to relaunch it or that I've,
Yeah.
I've got some sort of like mental hang up. It's just a laziness. I mean,
Yeah,
not
it's like
really,
there's an
but
invisible force keeping you from it and you don't know what. And that is weird because again, like we know when if we're just dragging our feet on something or we know if we don't want to do something, like we know the answers to those things. So this is a much more complicated thing, but I like the idea that like there is that it's not just me. It's not just you. It's not just the people listening that this is a thing. And so like how do we move past this? Like how do we unstick ourselves to making this happen, making it a priority, getting like what is the piece that will kind of unlock this, I guess, because I feel like a lot of people, like this is the unexplained phenomenon why a lot of people are struggling
yeah.
with something right now, or maybe several things.
Yeah. Well, let's think about it. I mean, I think the term transition tax, I mean, you came up with that. It's like fabulous. Let's think about real taxes, right? Nobody wants to pay taxes. Nobody. And if we think about a transition tax, you don't want to pay the extra time, energy, money that it costs to get it out the door. But, if I were, I don't know, let's just say, there was a really big, natural disaster and the road from my house to the grocery store was completely torn up. And I knew that paying my taxes meant that that road would be done by summer. There would be a return on investment that would, it's not that it's fun to pay taxes, but I would understand it. And I think what happens in this transition is that we are having trouble imagining the like future benefit and feeling that benefit proactively or preemptively enough to override the pain of paying the tax. And I think once we can do that, then we're willing to pay the tax.
That's a really, really good point. Like I think one like it's almost like realizing to get what we want, we have to do what it takes to get what we want. Right? And
Yeah.
going, okay, so let's focus on what we want. It's kind of what you're saying. Like it's like
Yeah.
what I'm hearing you say is like instead of focusing on the bridge it's going to take to build to get to the other side, we have to pay attention to the other side. And in paying attention to the other side, we will if we focus on that enough, we will build the bridge. Is that kind of what I think what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, because it's that age-old saying, we don't change until the pain of change is less than the pain of saying the same, and
Yeah.
that's I think I said that right. And in the example of like scalable coach method, right now I have a general idea that that course could be really beneficial. It could make money. Like, but I haven't really like played that out. And I think if you and I sat down and we spent an entire, I don't know, let's say half a day or a day planning out the potential of scalable coach method and really like crunching the numbers and looking at the possibilities, all of a sudden the tax that it would cost to get that out the door wouldn't seem so bad and we'd do it. And I think that's the ultimate way to solve this is to create enough of a vision for yourself that the pain is worth it.
Yeah, totally. I think that makes sense. Because yeah, that's the way. I mean, it's the reward system in our brains, right? Like
Yeah.
once we can see the reward, then we can realize, okay, what does it take to actually get there? Like it's worth it. It's worth the
But
reward.
how hard is it sometimes to create vision if you're in a season of burnout or you're in a season of
Mm,
disappointment or this example that I'm using is a pretty easy example because I'm relatively certain that it will do well because it has done well. And but if I was like coming from a place where it hadn't done well or things were really bad, it would be hard to create that vision because you would be, in that sort of hope deferred mindset. And it's really hard to be creative when you are in that mindset.
100%. You're like, yeah, I think that's probably is what is stopping people. So like they know they want to get to the other side, but it's not guaranteed. And that is
Yeah.
where that's a whole other level of of mind
That makes
trash
the
that we have
transition
to.
tax even more painful because you're
Yeah,
not
pay the
sure.
transition tax for like not sure of a payout. Like that would really stink, you know? It's like it's almost and then at that point it's cheaper to stay, right? Because it's more
It's cheaper to
dangerous.
stay, you think. But again, we're really bad at understanding opportunity costs. Like our brains are much better. We like if you remember that the brain does two things. It keeps you safe and it conserves energy. It's way
Hmm.
easier to keep you safe and conserve energy when you know what you're dealing with. But when you don't know what you're dealing with, that's just inherently raises the threat level. And because of that, we often don't see the opportunity cost of not doing something
Right.
because we can't see it. We have to envision it and then we have to believe that it's possible. And that's asking a lot of our very primitive brains to do that. And I think that's why people just stay stuck because let's even talk about it with like FG funnels, right? We talk to people all the time. They know the system that they're in doesn't work very well. They want to go to FG funnels. They understand that that's the right system, but the transition tax is so high that they just stay stuck because they literally cannot envision what they're missing out on by staying in the position that they're in.
It makes so much sense too when you're thinking about all the questions that come up. I mean, even think about this, you guys think about this with your clients and your customers, all these objections that they have to overcome is this. It's like thinking about the transition tax. They're like, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about like, so they're like, it's because whatever, your new life will cost you your old one, that whole thing, right? So it's like whatever, wherever they're at, is that more comfortable? Is it safer? Is it more like solid and like known? I mean, of course it is, right? Because you know
Right,
what
because
it's
it's
like to
tangible.
you know what it's like to be in your certain situation.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, but also, so I wonder if in that scenario, you have to decide instead of just looking at the goal and like what the positive is, decide that it is not worth staying in the current place. Like
Right.
even
And that's
if
where
it fails.
that's why that's why I always say sell to people who are in pain. Because if you're trying to sell to people who are not in pain yet,
Mm,
right, the transition tax is always too high. But if they're already in pain, then that transition tax is worth it because that's less painful than where they are right now.
right.
And so the goal for you, if you're like, okay, I want to move forward with something, but I'm stuck, the goal is to make your current situation so painful that the tax seems reasonable by comparison.
Yeah. And
Which,
enter burning the boats.
yeah, exactly. And it's what's so funny is like right now the transition tax that I'm paying to start a new sheep farm is like astronomical, but I have enough evidence in my past that there were big moments and big decisions I made that felt uncertain, that felt expensive, that felt hard, that I'm so glad I did that I'm telling myself like that can happen again, right? But
Yeah.
if that hasn't happened for you, then I can totally see why people stay stuck because they don't have any evidence to back up that the future is going to be better than where they are today.
Yeah, I think it's even kind of what you're saying is even the idea of failing at it is still okay. Like
Hmm.
because every time someone does anything, they don't have a guarantee it's gonna work. I
No,
mean, like never
no.
we've never launched anything where we've had a guarantee where it was gonna work. We've never done anything even in our lives, right? Like any big risk in our lives, we've never like done it with 100% certainty. But I think that even if it doesn't take off, it's still better than being where you're currently at or not trying, right? Like if even and then at least you know that you tried and you're like, it's I don't
Right. Well,
know.
blah, blah, blah. I will often say to people, what's your other option? If they're nervous about something, I remember I was talking to a client and they have this vision for this program. And I told them, I said, your best bet is to build a webinar. And there was this like you said, this transition tax. They want to do it, but it's so much, so much fear. And at the end of the call, I basically just said, what's your other option? Like you could just stay here. You could half-ass it if you want. And I think that was the moment where that person was like, you're right. I'm like, how many years you got left on this earth, right? Maybe
Yeah.
30. Like
Yeah.
you're going to spend the next, what, 2, 3, 4 years trying to get this off the ground. If you don't, then what? And I think that was like a big moment. So for big things, you can sometimes use that, but for smaller things like moving software or relaunching a course, they don't feel heavy enough. So you can definitely like perpetually procrastinate because that transition tax just feels annoying.
I think the key that we're kind of circling around is not focusing on the transition tax you're going to pay, but like the before and the after, or like right, or where you're currently at.
Yeah.
Like let's like focus on like how much does it hurt? What is it hurting? What are the cons? Like what's like the bad thing about it? And is that okay to keep going?
Hmm.
And or also focusing on the future and what it will look like, what it will feel like, almost envisioning it. Like I love to when I'm like trying to get to the other side of something, I want to embody that person, and think of like what's it going to be like when this and this, when I'm not feeling like, and actually because I guess maybe because I'm a really visual person, but just like closing my eyes and being that person and going, okay, what does this feel like? What do I not have to worry about? Like what are the things that are, and then focusing on the current pain and the future pleasure, I guess, is enough to make me go, okay, now I'm ready to make a plan. Like I mean, like it's almost like shifting your identity, right? Like it's
Yeah.
an identity shift of like I want to be that person or I want to do that thing or I want to get that whatever, and then embodying that identity, and then it's worth crossing into whatever it would take.
I remember listening to a talk about I can't remember who it was. They were talking about how they decided one day they wanted to be a drummer. And it's like they had to put on that identity before they were it, right? So what was a drummer do? Drummer would buy a drum set, they'd buy headphones, they'd buy. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. And so I think one thing is like looking at what it is that you're procrastinating on. Is it something small, like relaunching a course or a program or moving software, or is it something big, like, an identity shift? Because on the one hand, those identity shifts are going to be expensive in the transition tax, but they also have like huge ROI. Whereas some of the smaller things, you know, you don't have the same like grand vision of what will I do with my life if I don't do this. But it's still important to project out the possibility so that you can focus on that end result and endure the in between. But I think it's a really good point that you're making between people who are stuck in this transition tax versus like truly burnt out. That there's a big
Yeah,
difference.
because they could if thinking that that's what it is, then they're going to solve the problem in a way that, and it's not going to solve the problem, like they might be like, oh, well, have some self-care or, take a look at, or pivot or change it. Like they're almost like changing the wrong thing
Right.
because it's not the right problem they're solving. And so that's where I think this is really important to be like, well, no, but do you actually want this? Do you actually like this? And it's not about the doing that's like bothering you. It's just the growth that needs to happen or the stretching or whatever, like a hermit crab outgrowing the shell and needs to be like
Find a new
vulnerable
show.
for a minute, like to crawl into the other shell. Like it's like they could get eaten while they're crawling into the new shell. I don't know, right? But it's like, no, this is actually a good thing. I actually want this, and I don't know why I'm not getting what I want. Like it is like it almost like doesn't make sense. I think that's when you know that it's not a burnout thing because it's not an easy answer, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah. And, there are a couple things we did last year where that transition tax was high. I can think of the last year, though, we had on our plate to do a weekly webinar. And it wasn't like a super high transition tax, but we had to build the webinar. And if you've ever built a webinar, it's hard. It mentally hurts your neurons to do it. And we had so many other things in the pipeline. It was easy to kind of stall. We couldn't really, I mean, I knew that it was going to be profitable, but like I was having a hard time taking the time to really envision it. And it took us 5 months to get it out the door. I think we got it out in June, maybe so 6 months. We spent a lot in transition tax, and now we look back and I think, oh my goodness, like what if we hadn't done that?
Mhm.
Right? It's almost what, $400,000 or $500,000 in revenue that we would have missed out on had we not done that. And then when you look back, you're like, man, that transition tax was so small, right? Like it was so small. And I think you stack enough of those in your life and you start to realize, okay, I'm willing to push through even if I can't see the full potential of what I'm doing just yet.
Yeah, I think we're in that transition tax period with FG Society also. So I'm
I
trying to think of
agree.
like the
Yeah.
positive, like it's going to be really awesome when it relaunches, but it's like it's going to take some doing and some hard work and lots of people and a lot of things and a lot of things to think about, but totally going to be worth it at the end. So I think it's worth, and that also we delayed on for like a long time and kind of dragged our feet on it. So, yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing to drag your feet also. I think even being safe and taking time and not doing things like by the seat of your pants is not a bad thing. Like I actually think it's like a really evolved thing for us to take time and energy or just like just take a beat and pause and give it its space. I don't think it's like you're not like doing anything wrong and you're not like weird and you're not lazy and you're not, like any of those things. There's nothing negative about it. I think it's a positive thing that we have, but we do want to move out of it. So it's just like, okay, we know it's
Yeah.
going to take our frontal cortex, right? Or prefrontal cortex, whatever it's called. It's going to
Mhm.
take our executive brain to get out of it because we're going to stay in our like autopilot if we don't do something on purpose.
Yeah. It's really helpful to stretch that vision muscle. If you are feeling this way and you haven't sat and thought about what is actually possible, use that entrepreneurial part of your brain to really imagine the possibilities, and that will help make the tax more bearable. And if it's not a transition tax and it's burnout, well, that's a different problem. And paying the tax won't necessarily fix the burnout. And I think it's really helpful to know the difference between the two.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you brought the topic up.
Very
As
cool.
always, guys, if there is a topic you want us to discuss on this podcast, please DM us at Funnel Gorgeous on Instagram. We love to talk shop about the things that matter to you. And we will talk to you soon.
Hey, gorgeous. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And if you're thinking, okay, but what now? We've got you. So just for listening today, we want to give you a gift. Head over to learngorgeous.com. We're going to grab some free resources, free trainings, this month's specials, and everything you need to keep going. Until next time, make it gorgeous.